Plenty of them out there, isn't there, Brother Stan? They're out there, and sometimes I think the church, we just look the other way. And that's not what we should do. We should reach out to them. As individuals, we need to do that. Anybody else got a request? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I heard that yesterday, that she's just 65 and has just retired and passed away. And not sure if she just died in her sleep, from what I'm hearing, so I don't know. So let's remember that family. It's hard enough to lose somebody when you're expecting it, but when it's unexpected, it's a great shock. It really is. Anybody else?
We go into tomorrow, just remember all the veterans around. There's several, the people beginning to kind of just shove them off, and just like it was years ago. There's a lot of them be going overseas here for long, and we just want to remember and just give them a thanks, because when you leave home like we did one time and go overseas, and you know, it's kind of, you see people over there and you want to say thank you, because they got kids and too, and they're going overseas, and they need to thank you every now and then.
Yes.
Just remember them.
Yeah, remember him very much. I'll call my son-in-law tomorrow and tell him I hope he doesn't go deployed, because I'll leave my daughter and two grandchildren home. So, but hopefully he won't. They usually send them guys out early if they're going to send them out. So hopefully he won't go. Anybody else got a request? All right. Well, we're going to go to prayer tonight. Brother Jimmy McGahey, will you start it for us? And we'll just all pray in your own way. All right. The bulletin says, special singing's next, right? We don't even have a bulletin. What am I talking about? It's because we got it memorized, right? I don't know, what does it say on the screen? Doesn't say anything on mine back there. So anyway, anybody got a song or testimony or a scripture or a poem or anything you want to share with us tonight? Anything at all? I can guarantee you the quartet's not going to sing because Randy's in Kentucky. That would be a trio, and we haven't practiced. Brother Danny's going to sing one for us. You going to practice one? That's all right. We'll let you. You going to play for yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get the microphone over here.
So if I mess up this, I'm trying to play it in a key I can sing in. So bear with me.
is greater far than tongue or pen can ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star and reaches to the lowest hell. The guilty pair bowed down with care. God gave His Son, oh, to win. His erring child He reconciled and pardoned from his sin. Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure. The saints and angels song. When hoary times shall pass away, and earthly thrones and kingdoms foil, when men who hear refuse to pray on rocks and hills and mountains call, God's love so sure will still endure, all measureless and strong, redeeming grace to Adam's race, the saints and angels song. Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless, oh, and strong, it shall forevermore endure. The saints and angels song. Could we think the ocean fill, and were the skies a parchment made, were every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above would drain the ocean dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky. Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless, oh, and strong, it shall forevermore endure. The saints and angels song. Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless, oh, and strong, it shall forevermore endure. The saints and angels song.
I think he's about got that key change down pat, don't you? Stephanie, you gonna sing one for us? Cool. push the right button. I'll control the volume here if we need to, okay?
I'm sorry, hold on. I won't be able to help the commercial, so sorry about the commercial. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Search me and try me, Master, today. Whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in my presence humbly I bow. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Wounded and weary, help me, I pray. Power, all power, surely is thine. Touch me and heal me, Savior divine. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Hold o'er my being, absolute sway. Fill with thy spirit till all shall see Christ only, always living in me. Christ only, always living in me.
Thank you, Sister Stephanie. Somebody else? Well, the girls, or at least one of them. Azraea's not going to help? Just Lucy? All right. You want the green microphone, Lucy?
Father, let the kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as in heaven, right here in my heart. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as in heaven, right here in my heart. Give us this day daily bread. Forgive us, as we forgive the one to sin against us. Forgive him, and lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from the evil ones. Let your kingdom come. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as in heaven, right here in my heart. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as in heaven, right here in my heart. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us, as we forgive the one to sin. Forgive us, forgive him, and lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Let your kingdom come. It's yours, all yours, all yours. The kingdom, the power, the glory are yours. It's yours, all yours, all yours. The kingdom, the power, the glory are yours. It's yours, all yours, all yours. The kingdom, the power, the glory are yours. It's yours, all yours, all yours. Forever and ever, the kingdom is yours. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as in heaven, right here in my heart. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as in heaven, right here in my heart. On earth as in heaven, right here in my heart.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm going to let you guys know this. That's the first time I think she's done that, and the words weren't on the screen back there. That's good. That is good. Somebody else got a song you want to sing, or a testimony, or a scripture, a poem? Some of you don't sing, but you can read. Well, Libby, you got one you going to sing? I don't know. People are gluttons for punishment, I guess, but come on up. It's because you can sing. Get up here and sing one, girl.
I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story because I know 'tis true. It satisfies my longing as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story, more wonderful it seems than all the golden fancies of all our golden dreams. I love to tell the story. It did so much for me, and that is just the reason I tell it now to thee. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story. 'Tis pleasant to repeat what seems each time I tell it more wonderfully sweet. I love to tell the story, for some have never heard the message of salvation from God's own holy word. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story for those who know it best seem hungering and thirsting to hear it like the rest. And when in scenes of glory I sing a new song, 'twill be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love.
Thank you, Sister Libby. Anybody else got something? Why don't you ask them? You guys sing? Play an instrument? We'd like for you to. Carol can't talk. She's wanting to know, but she's been all choked up for weeks now, okay? Literally, she has. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but we practice open mic here. We got a lot of talented people here at Edinburgh Church. Every fall, we go down here up here to the park. It's up, ain't it? North of Main Street. Yeah, North Main Street. It ends into the park. We go up there, and for about 2 hours, we sing. And we have a good time, don't we, guys? And eat. Yeah, we eat too. That's true. We do. That's true. And next time we have it, you guys come up and join us. It's all casual. You just come on in your blue jeans and T-shirt, and we just have a good time, okay?
We like to sing as a family. We have 2 sons and 4 girls. And so a lot of times we will sing together. But they're getting to the point now where they're older, so they all have their own little ministries that they're working at. So the church that we originally come from is Martinsville Baptist Tabernacle in Martinsville, Indiana. And so that's where our kids all grew up. And so one of them's working sound tonight, and one of them played the piano this morning, and another one played the cello, so they're kind of busy there and practicing with choir and stuff like that. So they don't get to come over here with us as much. But this is my daughter. My name's Debbie Parker, and this is my husband, Paul. And this is my daughter, Ava, and this is my daughter, Allison. We actually have Andrew, Ann, Avery, Ava, Ashlyn, and Allison. So they're all, my husband says since he's a teacher, he has to have straight A's. So like the woman at the well, I was seeking that never shall run dry. Fill my cup, Lord, I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Fill my cup, fill it up and make me whole. There are millions in this world who are craving the pleasures earthly things afford, but none can match the wondrous treasure that I find in Jesus Christ my Lord. Fill my cup, Lord, I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Fill my cup, fill it up and make me whole. So my brother, if the things this world gives you leave hungers that won't pass away, my blessed Lord will come and save you if you kneel to Him and humbly pray. Fill my cup, Lord, I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Fill my cup, fill it up and make me whole. We would like to invite you all to come to our Christmas program. I know some of you are attached to the old Christian church building that the Lord has given us as a miracle to start this Christian school in. But the plan is to have our Christmas program there. Mr. Parker, what's the date? December 19th. So we would love to have you come join us. The kids are cute as buttons anyway, so you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. Write that down, Jimmy, so you can announce that. Yeah, what time? 7 o'clock? Okay. You're the announcement guy. Write that down so we don't forget it, okay? Remind us. Our Christmas program here is December the 7th, so that'll give us plenty of time, won't it, to get over there? Or some of you. I don't know if I'll be here or not, but I don't know. Anyway, somebody else got something?
I don't know. I've had this feeling for a while. I think something good's going to happen. I can't explain it. There's just some things you've said over the last few weeks and things that just got a good feeling about something. Something's going to happen. I mean, I don't know how big or how little, but something good, because a lot of things going on in a lot of people's lives, and I was sitting there thinking, I got COVID going on, shingles going on, people may be losing their job for long going on, and all, involves my family, and but I thought, if we sit down and Brother Glenn could stand up and tell the things that are going not so right in his life, with some of his friends, but like you said, God's still on the throne. And I love this church, and I thought about, and I think I met him somewhere before. I talked to him today, they saw it, so helped me my right hand up. I thought, that guy can play the piano.
He can. We just found out. He can play
I
the
know.
piano.
But why did I feel that way? You know what I mean? I mean, just talking to him, that was the time talking, But I hope they can tell you the same thing that people have told me over the years here at this church. He said, like people have told me more than once, and I appreciate it and love it. They say, when you walk in the door back there, they can feel the love of this church. And thank God for that. That's the way it ought to be, you know, and you don't have to maybe shake out. I'm gonna let shake hands every way I can, you know, but, and aggravate them, you know, try to get to know them, you know, and, but it's, God got a way of revealing things to you. I mean, I'll tell you this real quick, Brother Bud, when they first started coming here, I don't know how many of you know this not, I went back there and shook hands with his wife. Just, you know, just how you doing, sis, and I'm glad to be here, you know, and I went home and I told Marlene, I said, I know her. I know that lady. She said, well, where at? And I said, I don't have no idea. I don't know if she waited on me at Walmart or stopped me on the street and smiled and said, how are you having a good day or what? But so I just kind of let it go for a couple of years or so, you know. And I was aggravating Bud back there one day, and I told her, I said, you got to watch him because he went to Dare County School. And I said, he's on the wrong side of the river. And she said, well, she's Camel Fell. She went to Taylor County. I said, she did? So I called down to Kentucky to have my buddy look in the angels. I went to school with her.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't seen her for 50 years, but I knew her, you know. And I thank God for showing me that, you know, that she was a wonderful lady, you know. But I can remember faces, but I can't remember names a lot of times, you know, and I've been that way all my life, you know, but it's just amazing how God works and how great He is. Just doing things for me, but just hang on, I think something good's going to happen.
All right. Might be chocolate gravy, Jenny, you never know.
I don't eat chocolate. I hate it.
We hope it's bigger than that, right?
I ate that when I was young.
All right, anybody else got something? All right, if not, we're going to read in the Word tonight. In the book of Luke, chapter 14. And, you know, I anticipate big things from the Lord. I really do. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm expecting big things out of Edinburgh Church. I really am. It's God's people is going to have to stand up sooner or later. We're going to have to just be heard. We're not going to take up arms. We're not going to fight. But we need to be committed to Christ and not be ashamed of it. And that's kind of what we're going to preach about a little bit tonight. And if I didn't think big things were going to happen at Edinburgh Church, I wouldn't drive 3 hours every week to get up here and 3 hours home. I'd just stay home. There's plenty of other little churches down where I live, 200 miles away, are begging for pastors. And I have people talk to me all the time, why do you drive that far every week to go up there and pastor? Why don't you come to our church? And you know what my answer is? Because that's where I need to be right now. That's where I need to be. And love you and appreciate you, but if we want big things to happen, listen, this is what it's going to take tonight. So follow along with me here as we read in the book of Luke, chapter 14. I'm going to start in about verse 25 and read the rest of that chapter, which is pretty much all in red, isn't it? The words in red. It said, there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said unto them, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first, and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? Lest haply, after he hath laid the foundation, and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build, and was not able to finish. Or what king, going to war against another king, setteth not down first, and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassador, and desireth conditions of peace. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. And we'll stop there, okay? Did you notice a little phrase I read 3 times? He's asking for a commitment, isn't he? And if we don't measure up to that, he said, he cannot be my disciple. Now, that's pretty clear to me. I don't know about you guys. That's pretty clear to me, okay? But so often we're not willing to measure up to what Jesus is saying. This great multitude that's following him. You know, sometimes, I know I did growing up, and I think you probably have too, and even probably still today, a lot of you think, you know, that when Jesus went around, it's just him and 12 guys. There's a bunch of people with him. There's a bunch of women that followed him. And as his ministry grew year after year, and it was only 3 years long, but, you know, we have what they call the inaugural year, the first year of his ministry, and then the year of popularity, and then the year of opposition. But even in the year of opposition, a lot of people followed him. And he had to challenge them sometime about what it takes to follow Christ. And we're going to try to challenge you tonight on what it takes to follow Christ. A commitment that we make at some point in our life, don't we? I know people, and maybe you do too, that just really can't quite remember when they became Christians. I don't have that problem. I mean, there was a huge change in my life. And I've told you, and I've never give you all the details, and I'm not going to give you all the details. But before I got saved, I was not a nice person. Some of you say I'm not nice now, but you should have known me then. Okay? I mean, I was not, and when the Lord changed me, there was an obvious difference. And I made a commitment that night to God. And that's the commitment that I want to talk to you about tonight. And I've titled this message, Complete and Unconditional Surrender. Complete and unconditional surrender. That's what Jesus is talking about right here. And I am compelled to believe that when we come to Christ, if we really find forgiveness of sins and are adopted into the family of God, you can say it a lot of ways. When we get converted, we get saved. You know, we can say it a lot of different ways, you know. We offered, at that point in our life, we offered complete and unconditional surrender. And I say that because I firmly believe in my heart that we didn't get what we needed if we didn't give complete and unconditional surrender. For in my mind and in my study, I have come to believe that God doesn't take us part-time or part of us. It's either all or nothing with God. All or nothing. Can you believe that? That God would demand that of us, all of nothing? Let's look at what we read here, and let's break it down a little bit. We're not kind of maybe more like a Bible study tonight. Some of you know how I teach. You're hanging around SBBI on the weekends, and, you know, I've been accused all these 42 years of pastoring of being a preacher teacher. Somebody accused me of that this morning sent me a text and said, boy, we miss you as our pastor. And I've been going a long time from that church. And she said, you know, we were talking, her and another lady in the church went to a revival and said went every night. And when they got finished and the revival was over and they were going home, said they got to talking and they didn't get a thing out of that revival. And one of them looked at the other and said, do you remember when Brother Danny was pastoring at our church? We understood the point behind every message before he left. I hope you guys understand the point behind every message I try to preach. And I want to be, you know, watered down and you don't understand, okay? I'm going to talk about complete and unconditional surrender. First of all, I want us to notice in verse 26 that all these people are following after him. And there's a strong word used here, isn't there, in verse 26, the word hate? Now, do you think that Jesus is using that word in the context that we use it today? I mean, hate's a strong word, isn't it? It's a strong word. That word hate would indicate a preference against somebody or something, okay? Is Jesus really asking us to hate our father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and ourselves? You know, in the context that we use hate today. Is that what he's asking? Or is he asking this? above all things that pertain to you, your entire family. And this is strong. This is strong medicine tonight here, okay? Is God first. Is He number one? In the past 8 years that I've been here and working on 9 now, which is kind of scary to me that you've let me stay here that long, but, I buried my mother just back in January, and I know some of you would come to me and say, well, on Sunday night, why don't you go home and be with your parents? And I'll tell you why I didn't leave here and go home with my parents. Because God's first. And if I had left here and went home and stopped by their house on my way home, which is a mile and a half before I get to my house, and I went in and they knew that there wasn't something else going on that would prohibit me from being here and preaching, you guys don't know what would have been said to me. I can tell you this, the last 2 years Mom lived, she didn't know my name, but she knew what I did in pastoring churches, and she just said, why are you here? Get where you belong. I heard her tell me one time, I can die without you. I don't need you here. Now, that's there when she died, but I was raised by parents that believed God is first in everything in our lives. And if you want big things to happen from God, He must be first in every aspect of your life. Every house I have ever lived in my life, and this started with my parents, was dedicated to God. My parents have never owned a vehicle that wasn't dedicated to God. Every instrument that my parents ever had, and I've got a lot more than Dad's ever had, they're all dedicated to God. Why? Because He's first. Above all else, Jesus is saying, above all else, above everybody else, even in front of yourself, God's got to be number one. He's got to be number one. And if He's not in number one in your life, I'm compelled to believe that He may not be in your life. For He needs to be that important. That important. If you're married and husband and wife, you guys need to work together, absolutely, for sure. But if one of you is not going to pull the wagon for Christ like the other one, somebody needs to go. Boy, you didn't hear that, did you? Rick, don't look at Jessica. She elbowed him. She's going to do it again. I think they pull pretty good together. I don't know about you, okay? But if one spouse doesn't pull with the other one for the kingdom of God, you got a problem, right? And we can't give up on God and yield to our spouse, can we? We can't give up on God and yield to our parents or to our brothers and our sisters. And my goodness, we can't even yield to ourselves and forget God. That's a big statement. I'm telling you, I can make a series out of these verses that we've read today, okay? Tonight. He's asking for God to be first in our life. Verse 27 goes on. I'm not going to spend all night on verse 26. I got to go home here in a little while. Verse 27 says, doesn't it? Let's read again. Whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Bearing a cross. What does that mean? I mean, think about it. What does it mean? What does it mean? Well, we all have made a commitment to God. I did, and I don't know that I actually said these words, 50-some years ago when I was born again, but I told God I would do whatever He wanted me to do. I'd go anywhere He wanted me to go. I'd say anything He wanted me to say. Did you say something like that to God? I don't want to show hands because I don't want you to embarrass yourself, but how many of you have kept that promise ever since? Back up a little bit, don't we? We back up a little bit. The cross is that responsibility, and I'll tell you again tonight, church, if we have any responsibility at all, it is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to other people. That's our number one responsibility in the church. And might that entail reaching out and helping feed people? It might, okay? Might it entail giving people clothing if they need it, or paying a bill for them if they need it, or spending some time with them if they need it? Yes, but ultimately we do those things to reach them for Jesus Christ. because that's our number one responsibility. I did not know until our visitors came through the door that there was a Christian church in Edinburgh. I'm like, when did that happen? I don't live here, so I don't know, okay? But that's a big responsibility. And can I complain a little bit about our government in Kentucky? Not the government so much as the people. We had a proposed amendment to our Constitution that would allow our state government to aid private schools with funding, even Christian schools. That was a provision. That was provision number 2. Provision number 1 was that citizens alone would vote. I was for that one. I was for number 2. I like school choice. Do you? I think that's important. And I know we've got former teachers sitting here, and some of you teachers, but let me tell you something. The teachers' unions in Kentucky killed that bill. Said, no, that'll shut our schools down. And I don't know about you, but there's not a whole lot of God talked in most of our public schools. And I sure would have loved to have seen school choice. I don't have any kids or grandkids in school in the state of Kentucky, but I would have loved to have seen school choice and the church and the state helping fund private schools that were starting to come in so that their gospel could be taught to young people when they're in school. I'd love that. Complaint over with. Let's move on. I hope they heard that on Facebook in Kentucky. Because I told some of them that had vote no on Amendment 2, I stopped and talked to some of them because I know them. And I said, why? Oh, that's going to bleed all the funding off of ours. I said, no, it's not. It's called school choice. Do you believe in school choice? Oh, we do, but we don't like this amendment. Then you don't believe in school choice. I said I was going to get off my soapbox, didn't I? Okay, let's move on. Got to bear our cross. What does it mean? We got to die to self, just like he said in verse 26, didn't he? Self has to be less important than anything else. Keep your finger here. We're going to flip it a couple of passages of Scripture here. First one I want us to look at is over here in the book of Romans, chapter 6. Verse 6 and verse 7, because this is what happened when you became a child of God. And I know this by personal experience. I know this by personal experience. Listen to what Paul said happened to us when we came to Christ. We died with him. Chapter 6 talks about that dying out from self and living for Christ. In verse 6 he said, knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin. I can absolutely tell you this, absolutely by experience. When I finally yielded to the call of Jesus Christ in my life, and I humiliated myself in front of a whole bunch of other youth campers up there in Frankfort, Indiana, and walked down that aisle and knelt down at an altar and poured my heart out to God and asked him to forgive me of my sins. And you know what repent means, don't you? Turn around. Turn around and go in the other direction. I promised I would do that. And when his Spirit was poured out upon me and I felt forgiveness, I died that day. I died that day. Because when I got up from the altar, nobody had to tell me I need to quit riding with the motorcycle gang. Nobody had to tell me I had to quit beating up on people and intimidating them and sticking them with knives and stuff. That part was dead. I wanted to love people. I wanted to share the good message with people. Why? Because the old man was dead. And I'm so thankful I've never even wanted to return back to that life. I'd be dead right now if I'd have stayed with it. I guarantee I would have been. Because them kind of people don't live very long. You know that? But God had a purpose for me. He had a plan for me. And I had to lay down my plans in my life in order to pick up his plan for my life. And I had to do that in order to be forgiven. I came to God. I'll just lay the title of the message down right here to you. I had to come to God that night, and I had to unconditionally surrender to him. Hold nothing back, unconditionally. I had to come to Him and yield my life to His. And you did too. The problem is, as we go on through life, so often we want to just take things back, don't we? We want to pick up things that we ought not to pick up, and we want to make them part of our life. We want to return just a little while to the old life that we lived. And listen to me, there's no reason to ever return to the old life you used to live. Not at all. Unconditional, complete surrender to Jesus Christ. Paul likens it to death. The old man died. He tells us over in 1 Corinthians that we died, didn't he? He said, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. All things are passed away, and behold, all things become new. We cease to be in charge of our life. We have given it over to a higher power and a higher authority that knows better for us than we know for ourselves. And we unconditionally, completely surrendered to God, and we were born again. And if we want great things to happen in our life, if we want great things to happen in our church or our community or in our nation, we as God's people have got to lay aside a lot of things. Isn't that what He told us in another scripture? We need to lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher. Right? Who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is now sit down at the right hand of the throne of God. Still making intercession for us, pleading our case. Complete, unconditional surrender. When we die out, we become a new creature in Jesus Christ, don't we? I think sometimes we forget that. I think sometimes we forget who's in charge. Now, I've managed a business in my life, all except for the last few years, and I told the boss I didn't want to anymore, so he's let me do other stuff, and that's a lot more fun. But I remind myself constantly why I don't want to be the manager anymore, because people forget sometimes, and you have to get mean and ugly with them, don't you? I told a young man just a few weeks ago, all I do is go around and fix things now. You know, I'm in charge of the maintenance and the building, and of course, right now I've got an 85,000 square foot building I'm building. But this guy had run into a garage door. And I got a call from the manager. He said, who do I need to call? I said, well, you called the right guy. I'll come and check it out and see what's going on. And he said, well, what garage door company? I said, don't worry about it. I think I can probably fix it. I went by there. As soon as I walked into the door, this guy that had run into it comes over, and he's just apologizing so quick. And I said, well, tell me how it happened. And he said, well, I wasn't sure which door to open because I didn't know which semi was full and which one wasn't. And so I punched the button, and when I got up high enough that I could look under and see, he said, I stopped it, and I went and got my forklift and got my pallet, which is about 7 foot tall, and I tried to go through that door. I said, I hate to tell you, but it won't fit. And I said, here's what you do. You punch that button on the top that points up, and it will go all the way to the top, and you won't have to run into it anymore. Well, what's going to happen? I said, well, I'm going to try to fix it. And so I'm working away, just about had it all straightened back out. I went and had to get a piece of angle iron and straighten the bottom out, and I'm putting the last bolt or two in, and he walks over and he said, am I going to get fired for this? I said, probably not. But I can tell you this, if I was still the manager, we wouldn't be standing here talking. And he looked at me kind of funny. I said, there is no excuse for not putting that doorway up and doing your job and driving that forklift. That's what we hired you to do. So let me remind you, don't break anything again. Does God ever have to tell us stuff like that? I brought you out of sin to be a witness for me. I brought you out of sin not to go back and dabble in sin anymore, but to live a life apart from sinfulness, a life of holiness, a life of complete surrender and unconditional dedication to me, and that's what He expects of us. Everybody in that place that I work for is glad I'm not the manager anymore. But let me tell you something, God's tougher than I am. And we need to be reminded once in a while that He is still in control. and we gave a commitment to him that we would put him number one in our life, and that we would take this obligation of living for him and letting our light shine for him, as Jesus told us in the Sermon on the Mount, didn't he? Over there in Matthew chapter 5, he said, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works, glorify your Father which is in heaven. That's our obligation, isn't it? And he wasn't talking about just during revival time or just during the time that the church is all together. No, that meant every day of our life, didn't it? Every day of our life. He's got to be top in our life. And we got to respond by doing what he's called us to do. Let's go over to John chapter 21 for just a minute. He has already been crucified. He's risen from the dead. He's been talking to his disciples for 3 years. This is the last meeting he's going to have with them pretty much, as far as we know. And he's on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, and they're all up there waiting on him. And this is the story where they all fished all night and didn't catch anything, you know. And Jesus yells from them from the shore and said, did you catch anything? And they all didn't get it. Well, throw the net on the right side of your ship. And they did and caught a bunch. And John goes, oh my goodness, Peter, it's the Lord. Now these are the guys that followed him for 3 years. And it's always amazed me because these guys had gone fishing. And he said, meet me up there at Galilee. They went fishing. Whose fault was that? Don't say Peter. I know he suggested it. I'm going to go fishing. They said, well, we'll just go with you. And they did, right? But the problem is they all went. You can't go with the tide of popular opinion. You got to stand for the Lord. And they're out there, and Jesus yells to them from the bank, and John recognizes who it is after they get this great draught of fish, and he looks at Peter, and he said, it's the Lord. Did you read what Peter had to do? He grabbed his cloak and put it on because he's naked. He ought not to have been naked. He ought to have been serving the Lord. But they came up. Jesus had fish cooking on a fire. How many of you had fish for breakfast? It ain't so bad. I've trout lined and caught a catfish or two and skinned him and cleaned him and put him over the fire. It's not bad. It's better than snake and all that other stuff I've ate, okay? So he's got that. But then he gets down to business with these guys, okay? Gets down to business with them. And I think we need to get down to business with the Lord because sometimes he does with us, doesn't he? You see, we're just a bunch of Baptists here. How many times have you guys heard me in the last 8 years talk about when Saul, he was known then, when he was in Damascus and he was blind and he's down there on Straight Street and God goes and talks to the man named Ananias and he talks to, and he said, Ananias, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go down on Straight Street and I want you to inquire in one house of Simon the tanner and there's a man named Saul and he's praying and I want you to go down there. And you know what? Ananias, I've told you this, he was separate Baptist. You know how I know? Because as soon as the Lord told him to do that, he said, I ain't going. And that's the Baptist answer, ain't it? I'm not going. And God said, oh yeah, you got to go down there because I've already shown him a vision, a man named Ananias coming down and praying over him that he could receive his sight. And Ananias, he's Baptist to the bone. He said, I've heard about that guy. I know what he's up to and I know what he's here trying to do and I'm not going down there. And I know this is my version, not King James, okay? But I think God looked down at Ananias and said, I don't care if you are a Baptist. Get your happy self up and get down there and do what I told you to do. Does he ever treat you that way? Does he ever have to tell you things like that? Yeah, why? Because at some point we should have completely and unconditionally surrendered to Christ, and yet he has to repeat himself, right? If you're a parent, how many times have you done that with your children? If you're a wife, how many times have you done that to your husband? I shouldn't even ask that question, should I? Because I ain't got a wife, but I know what it's about. I had one time. Repeat myself and repeat. Should God have to repeat himself to us, or should we just step up and say, Lord, here am I. Here am I. We ought to, shouldn't we? But this conversation got kind of heavy right here, as we would say in my generation, okay? Down in verse 15 of John chapter 21. They've had breakfast, and Jesus looks at Simon Peter. Now, Mr. Peter, you know, he's the outspoken one of the bunch. He's kind of the unofficial leader. He's going to wind up as the unofficial leader on Pentecost, and we all know that. We all know the history, right? But Jesus is going to ask him one more time, you know, Peter, are you completely and unconditionally surrendered to me? That's what this conversation's all about with Peter, okay? So he looks at Peter in verse 15, and he said, Simon, son of Jonas, Lovest thou me more than these? Now, I've debated with him myself over the years. What's he mean by these? Is he talking about, do you love me better than everybody else? Or do you love me, or do you love me more than they love me? Or I don't know, okay? But I just know Jesus poses that question. And Peter answers him by saying this, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. And I can just about see Jesus saying, well, that's nice, Peter. That's nice. Go feed my lambs. Go do what I've called you to do. Go pick up your cross and start delivering the message and encouraging the church. Isn't that what he told him? When he told him he's going to deny him? He said, Peter, Satan's desired to have you like wheat, and I've prayed for you. And when you're converted, I want you to strengthen the brethren. That's what God's asking him here. Peter knows what his job is already. And God is saying, Peter, if that's your job, do you love me enough, Peter, that you're going to go out here and feed these people? Are you going to strengthen the brethren? Are you going to do that? And again he said to him in verse 16, second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, well, feed my sheep. Now, sometimes we'd say, well, twice should be enough, but 3 times Jesus had to say this. And so in verse 17, he saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Now, I want you to notice the response of Peter. And it's unbelievable to me over these years that I've been pastoring how many people say, well, I'm just like Peter. Well, God help you. I mean, think about it. Isn't he the guy that's always sticking his foot in his mouth? And he is here because Jesus asked him the third time. He said, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, lovest thou me? He's grieved. You know why? Because the first 2 times Jesus didn't buy the answer he gave. He just didn't buy it. See, we can say it with our mouth and not mean it in our heart, can't we? And literally what Jesus is doing to Peter is what he's done to some of us when the Lord wakes us up in the middle of the night and puts somebody on our heart and says, I want you to pray for them. And you go, well, Lord, I'll pray for them when I get up in the morning. No, I want you to get up right now and pray for them. Anybody ever have to do that? You know? Or have you ever felt the Lord telling you need to go visit somebody, maybe in the neighborhood or somebody within the church? Maybe they're sick and they're struggling and you don't even know about it. And the Lord tells you to go. And you know what we normally say? I'll go when I get time. I'm pretty busy right now, Lord, and when I get time, you think the Lord don't know how busy you are? You think he don't know what you're up to? And so what do? We get a little irritated at the Lord. Can you see I'm busy here? How many of you ever told your kids that? Can you see I'm busy here? But if we've got a full commitment to Christ, I'm talking about complete and unconditional surrender, wouldn't we drop everything to answer the call? I have yet, in all my years, to talk to a preacher who answered the call the first time. It's like he had to beat us to death, didn't he? I mean, it's like you driving down the road with the kids in the back seat and they're acting up and you saying, don't make me stop this car. Or you hear them in the bedroom and you're like, don't make me come in there. And the Lord gives his call and we kind of piddle around and we try to find another thing. I can only speak for me. I don't know about every preacher, but I've loved music all my life. You guys know I play several instruments. I've sung in groups all my life. And I'm saying, but Lord, you've asked the wrong guy to preach because you know I love music and that's what I plan to do with the rest of my life. And the Lord's saying, that ain't what you're going to do the rest of your life. I called you to preach. And I've said it here before and I'll tell you again. This is 42 years that I've been pastoring. And these 8 years that I've been at Edinburgh Church is the first time in all my years of pastoring that I have felt comfortable singing a song and preaching too. It was either sing or preach. I couldn't do both. You know why? Because I used that as an excuse not to answer the call that God had given to me. And I really believe that with all my heart. I'm like, yeah, Lord, I'll preach, but, I really want to sing more. And I'm not going to name the name of an individual that had asked me more than once, just asked me a few weeks ago if I'd start traveling with his group and singing, and they're good, and I love them. I've watched these kids grow up, and they're very good, and I keep saying, I cannot pastor and sing too. And he said, oh, you can preach and sing. I said, yes, you can preach and sing, but you can't pastor and travel with a group. Where's your heart at? Where's your commitment? Have you completely and unconditionally surrendered to God? So where you'll put off some things you like to do and do what he asks you to do. That's what he's asking Peter, isn't he? And so Peter's just a little bit upset here. I'll use a word we hear down home a whole lot. He's a little perturbed. We don't use that word much anymore, do we? But I still hear it down in Kentucky. So anyway, he said to the Lord, and I think he said it just a little bit upset with an attitude, don't you? You ever answer the Lord with an attitude? Peter did. Lord, you know all things. You know I love you. You ever answered the Lord with an attitude? I think we probably have, haven't we? And Jesus said, that's nice, Peter. Feed my sheep. Do what I've called you to do. If you really love me, you really have a desire to fulfill the commitment you made to me, then here's what you need to do. And I'm not going to ask you to expose yourself tonight, but you can think about it. And you can decide within yourself and with God, am I doing what God's asked me to do? Have I actually took up my cross? Am I bearing my cross and am I following him, okay? So then the next thing is that we're going to look at here in this very same scripture is that Jesus not only tells Peter that you've got to die to yourself in order to do this, but no matter what comes your way, you've got to follow Christ. Look on down here in verse 18 through 22. Because Jesus went on and said, verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself and walkest whither thou wouldest. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee and carry thee whither thou wouldest not. That don't sound good, does it? When you get old, it's not matter what you want to do. Somebody else is going to dress you, and they're going to take you where you might not want to go. Now, I like John's little commentary. This tells us that John actually, I can say this pretty surely, okay, that he wrote this after 67 A.D., because that's when Peter was killed. Because John says this in verse 19, this is John's commentary. This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. Now, how did John know that if it hadn't already happened? John's remembering what the Lord's saying to him, and I think he's remembering that Peter had said, I'm going to give you my entire life. I'm going to dedicate myself to you. And so here Jesus is telling Peter what's going to happen. In the last part of verse 19 said, and when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, follow me. Peter, it doesn't matter where you're going to go. Doesn't matter who you're with. Doesn't matter what may happen around you, regardless of anyone or anything that goes on in your life. Peter, follow me. Complete and unconditional surrender. I want all of you. That's what he's asking Peter, isn't it? But listen to old Peter here in verse 20. Then Peter, turning about, seeth the disciple whom Jesus loved, that's John following, which also leaned on his breast at supper, and said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? Peter, seeing him, saith to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do? John, John here, the guy that you're best friends with, if you're going to require me to live that kind of life, what about John? How guilty are you sometimes of pointing the finger at somebody else and saying, well, Lord, I know what you asked me to do, but what about them? And can I give you my version, not King James? I'm gonna, whether you like it or not. You know that. I just always ask for permission, and usually I get it. But Peter said, Lord, what about him? And Jesus said, Peter, that's none of your business. What happens with John is none of your business. I'm talking to you, Peter. I'm not talking to you about John. I'm talking to Peter about Peter. It's none of your business what happens to John. If I want John to live until I return and take the church home with me, that's none of your business. None of your business. People, get your eyes off of everybody else and get it on Jesus and on yourself, because you're going to answer for yourself before God. And I've used this example before. It just popped in my head, and you guys are always thankful I never say everything that pops in my head. But there was a man that attended my home church right next to my house there in Kentucky, and Jimmy and Carol and Judy, you guys all remember Brother Jack Patton. A giant of a man, I mean physically a big old man, great man of God, and I was in charge of Bible school. This is years before I started preaching, and I was out there leaned up against my pickup truck and directing the kids to play games and stuff, and Brother Jack came up out of nowhere, no warning, no nothing, and he looked at me, and very seriously he said, "Brother, I'm glad I don't have to answer for you when it comes to standing before God." I mean, this guy made me look like a midget anyway. The first thought in my mind was, what in the world did I do? What have I done that Brother Jack would say that to me? Brenda, you remember him too. Steve don't, but you do. Okay, we got some Burton Ridgers here. And I thought, what did I do? And I know I probably looked at Brother Jack kind of odd. And he looked back at me and he kind of smiled and put that big arm around me and he said, "Aren't you glad you don't have to answer for me?" I thought, yep. Even though I've got all confidence in the world in that man, I didn't want to answer for him. You know why? Because we answer for us. It's not anybody else, it's us. And so we have to be aware that what Jesus is saying here to Peter is, that's none of your business. If I want him to live until I come back, what's that to you? You know, your job is to follow me. Are you guys catching all this tonight? Okay, you haven't forgot what the subject is, right? Complete and unconditional surrender. Well, let's get back over here to Luke chapter 14. And let's look at the next part of this scripture. And I know it's getting late and you guys are worried, but I still got 3 hours to get home and you don't, so take that. And I don't care. The next thing Jesus brings up in this conversation is somebody building a tower, isn't it? How much is it going to cost? What's it going to cost? I mean, he makes it pretty plain here in this kind of a little parable thing, doesn't he? That which of you would build a tower without making financial arrangements first? I mean, would you start the building and then when you run out of money and everybody's laughing at you going, "Oh, look at them, big dummy, they didn't have enough money to finish the project"? Or would we make sure we had enough money to finish the project? I mean, the wise thing is to make sure you got enough money to finish the project, right? I mean, make plans ahead of time. And the point that Jesus is making here is this, and he even gives the example of the king going out to war, and can I take my army and can I defeat that army? You need to evaluate this thing and kind of figure out, what's it going to cost? What's it going to cost to serve God? Might it cost you some friendships? Might. Might it cost you some relationships within your family? Might. Might it cost a change and a new direction in your career? Might. Right? I mean, we want what we want, right? And I keep telling you that sign I read there for years as I drove past it managing a place there in Campbellsville, Kentucky, on that doctor's office. It said, "It's all right to map out your life. Just do it in pencil." Because sometimes that's the sacrifice we make in order to follow God and to please Him, don't we? I mean, that's what it takes. Giving up a little something here and a little something there in our lives as a token or a sign of how much we love God is not good enough. It's got to be deeper than that. It's got to come from our heart. It must be an inward surrender to the will of God, complete and unconditional surrender to His will. And you may not like every time He asks you to do something, but He knows best. And so He's asking us here, if you're going to follow me, what's it going to take? Our way must become His way. Our desires must become His desires. We got to turn it all over to Him, don't we? How many of you here want to see the kingdom of God grow and perhaps Edinburgh Church grow? How many of you here would like to see your community change for the better? How many of us here would like to see our state and local governments change for the better? How many of us would like to see our federal government change for the better? Well, God's got a little work there. It's got a lot of work. But it starts with His people completely and unconditionally surrendering to Him. I want to tell you about a guy that was one time President of the United States. He was commanding general in the Northern Forces during the Civil War. His name was Ulysses S. Grant. You guys all remember him? Now, President Grant had his issues, but he had a nickname. Do you guys know what his nickname was? U.S. Grant? There you go. Unconditional Surrender Grant's what they called him. You know how he got that name? I'm going to tell you if you don't know. Okay? And you say, how do you know? Well, I was taught this in school. And I actually remembered it. Can you believe that? Okay? So I kind of scribbled it down this afternoon. It said, after U.S. Grant had captured Fort Henry, he moved on to Fort Donelson. And there the commander of the fort asked for terms of the surrender. That's what happens in war, doesn't it? What's the terms of the surrender? To which General Grant replied, no terms, except unconditional and immediately surrender can be accepted. That dude's tough, ain't he? No conditions other than that. Just, unconditional and immediately surrender. I have to think that God asks the same of us, doesn't He? No terms other than this. I want all of you. Complete and unconditional surrender. And if we want God to work through our lives, you know that's what it takes. And we serve Him not just on Sunday, not just on Wednesday night when you come, but when you join the family of God and you work for Him, it's 24/7, 365. You never take a day off. Why? Because we completely and unconditionally surrendered to the will of Jesus Christ. And so I ask you to examine your life and to see, have I completely and unconditionally surrendered to God? And we sing this song quite often. We're not going to end with it tonight. We're going to end like we normally do, just by dismissing. But I like to leave you something to think about all week. We have a little hard time sometimes searching ourselves, don't we? Because we do like Peter. We want to compare ourselves with somebody else. We can't do that. We gotta be honest with ourselves and with God, don't we? And so when it comes down to it and you've examined yourself, I want to give you a little advice tonight. Do what David did. And we do sing this song once in a while. David said this in the Psalms. He said, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Search me, God. Search me. Turn on the light. Check me out. And if there's anything there that doesn't belong, show me. Help me to walk away from it. Help me to turn loose of it. Help me to turn my back on it. And help me to be completely and totally surrendered to you. Now, you Baptists have sat here and took that tonight, haven't you? You know why? Because I didn't give you the holiness title of this message. Entire sanctification. We believe that, don't we? Totally surrendered to Jesus Christ and His will. Stand with me. I mean, I grew up in a holiness church and some of it stuck, didn't it? I just have to change the title to get Baptists to understand and listen to me. So, anybody have a word before we dismiss tonight? I hope you're thinking and not thinking bad thoughts of me, but anyway. Appreciate you and love you. I wouldn't preach to you that way if I didn't love you, okay? But I really want to live that way. I want my life to be completely and totally surrendered to God. And I'll tell you, this is the 5th church that I've pastored, and one of them I was at 2 years, and I always told myself I will never just go to a church for 2 years. But when that 2 years was just about up, I felt such a call to leave. I just knew I had to leave. And didn't know where I was going to go, didn't know what I was going to do, but I just knew I had to leave. And they were begging me to stay, and I kept saying, I can't. I just don't know why. I can't. And so we made arrangements, and we left the church, and within a week another church called and just immediately just said, come and pastor our church. They had never heard me preach. They didn't even know me. And I stayed there 16 years. And God moved mightily, and our church grew, and people were saved. And now I'm at Edinburgh. God help us. But I feel like this is where I need to be. And if it means make the drive every week and sometimes during the week, that's all right. God will take care of it, okay? It'll be fine. But I want you to be completely and unconditionally surrendered to God. That no matter what He asks you to do, you say, here I am, Lord. And we answer the call. If you're not standing, stand with us. We'll be dismissed. Remember Wednesday, did you ever figure out what we're studying?